Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k, where we cover unit reviews for the 40k universe. Today I thought we'd head back into the Deathwatch Supplement and check out the Psyker within the book, CODICIER NATORIAN. So this guy comes in at 6 power level, although the app is showing 5 at present, so always stick to what the hardcover and FAQ say, as the app can be a little buggy at times. If you're playing points, then he's 100 points for the model. As for keywords of note, he's a Psyker, a Librarian, he's also a character and an infantry unit. As he's a unique character, only one of this model can be taken within your army. So looking at the base stat line, he's got movement 6 inch, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 4, attacks 3, leadership 9 and a 3+ save. So pretty standard stats really, nothing actually jumps out at me here. So as for the abilities, he's got the Xenos Hunter's rule, which is your Deathwatch chapter tactics ability. This is actually army wide, so when you're fighting against a Xenos race, which are Tyranids, Eldari, Orcs, Tau and Necrons, you can reroll hit rolls of 1, and also after deployment you can look at your opponent's army and select a battlefield roll within their army, and then for the entire battle you can reroll 1s to wound against that battlefield roll. So for example, if you're playing against Orcs and see a ton of Orc boys, which are troops, you'd be best served as selecting troops as your battlefield roll to get the reroll 1s to wound against all troops. So they've got the Marine standard of Angels of Death, so check out our Deathwatch Terminators video if you're not sure on what that rule is, as we go into a bit of detail within the rule there. It's effectively 4 rules within one, it's quite long-winded. I'll put a clicky in the top right of the screen now, which will take you straight to our Terminator video. Bear in mind that the Deathwatch faction replaces combat doctrines with their own unique variant, which is mission tactics, which is less restrictive on what doctrine you'll be working with each battle round. So he's also got a Psychic Hood, which is a +1 to deny the witch tests if you're within 12 inches of an enemy Psyker, so quite handy. Then finally he's got Battle Psyker, which is where you can +1 to your Psychic tests for Smite or other Witchfire powers. So this guy is a Psyker, he has access to the Xenopurge powers. He can actually take 2 powers from that list along with Smite, and he can also deny 1 power per phase. So having a look at the Xenopurge powers, in fact we did cover all the powers in the separate video. Again, I'll leave another click in the top right. So if you want to go and save that to your watch list for later, that might help. So depending on how you use your Librarian, you've got the choice of 6 powers. So the first is the Premorphic Resonance, which buffs your units in combat, giving them a +1 to hit, and they fight first, which is quite strong. They also overwatch on a 5+ if that floats your boat, and also they're a +1 to hit in melee as well. Fortified with Contempt is the second power, which gives your units a bit more resiliency with a 5+ feel no pain, which I really love. I mean, I play Necron, so I do love a bit of resiliency. The third power, Neural Void, nerfs enemy units, making them lose attacks and having to only charge the nearest Deathwatch unit. So as mentioned in the Xenopurge Discipline video we covered, I think this power needs an FAQ or a rewrite, as it says the unit loses an attack per model, but it doesn't say to a minimum of 1. So rules as written would suggest that you can put an enemy unit down to 0 attacks per model. Also, charging the nearest Deathwatch unit has its own issue, as they usually phrase it to the closest eligible unit, but in this case they haven't. So again, rules as written would suggest that putting a flyer as the nearest unit would technically be the closest, but of course they can't be charging flyers. So the fourth power, Psychic Cleanse, is a Witchfire power, so now you're getting that +1 to the Psychic test due to Battle Psyker. So this power is quite decent, as it throws out mortal wounds on all nearby models on a roll of a 6. So those hordes better beware. Unfortunately, he's only got a 9-inch range to that, so it is quite limited. The fifth is Mantle of Shadow, so it helps those units that are either advancing or doing actions on secondary objectives. They basically can't be targeted unless they're within 12 inches or the closest eligible unit, and notice the phrase eligible unit is in this one. So the final power here is Severance, which snipes out characters with mortal wounds and nerfs their aura abilities, so it's really powerful, especially if you roll higher than their leadership when you're doing your Psychic test. That will completely turn the aura off. So again, it all depends on your playstyle and what other units you're synergizing in with when selecting your 2 powers. It also depends on what you're up against too, I guess, if you've got that anti-horde power going. I really like the look of Fortified with Contempt in particular, just for the resiliency there. So going back towards his data sheet, I want to discuss his weapon loadout for a minute. So he comes with frag and crack grenades, which I'll put on the screen briefly for you, nothing to write home about there. Then he's got the Deathwatch Bolt Pistol and the Duty's Revelation as his melee weapon. So let's check those out. So the Deathwatch Bolt Pistol is a 12-inch range pistol, 1, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage, and it's got special issue ammunition. So for those of you who don't know what special issue ammunition is, otherwise known as SIA, Effectively, each time you shoot the weapon, you can select the ammo type from a list of 4 types. So the first type is the Dragonfire bolts. So each time you make an attack with this weapon, the target does not receive benefits of cover. The second, Hellfire rounds. So when you're using this weapon, you +1 to the wound roll, although it can't be done against a vehicle or anything with the Titanic keyword. Kraken bolts, when you're using this, you can add 6 inches to the range characteristic and improve the armor penetration of the attack by 1. So not too bad, that one. And then Vengeance rounds, when using this one, you +1 to the damage roll. On a larger unit, that's quite good, but obviously this librarian has only got 1 bolt pistol. It's not going to be that great, so don't expect too much from it. His Duty's Revelation weapon is a melee weapon, which is strength +1, making it a strength 5. It's -4 AP and damage is D3, so quite a tidy bit of damage coming from that weapon in combat. It's effectively a 4 sword with an extra bit of AP, and with 4 attacks base and having shock assault on top, will make him quite a decent fighter in combat. Don't forget he's also got weapon skill 2, which is quite reliable. So if the Codicier was selected as your Warlord, he comes with a set Warlord trait which is Nowhere to Hide, which is an aura ability. So in the command phase, while a Deathwatch core unit is within 6 inches of him, when they fire at enemy units, that enemy unit cannot benefit from cover to their saving throws. So it's quite similar to Dragonfire bolts really in the special issue ammunition. So that core unit can actually select a different special issue ammunition and then benefit from both. So looking at a few stratagems within this book alone, so ignoring all the anti-Xenos stratagems because that's quite specific to a certain game. Brotherhood of Veterans I've always found to be quite a cool one, even though it's 2 CP. It replaces your Xenos Hunters chapter tactics for the unit and replaces it with a chapter tactic from any of the other Space Marine chapters within the Codex for that 1 turn only. So it's very versatile, as some chapters are really good in combat, some are good at shooting, some made their movement, some made resiliency. So it opens the doors to many options for that turn. So for example, if you charged into combat with him and wanted to beef him up a little bit, switch out his chapter tactics for the Blood Angels tactics of Redburst, give him a +1 to wound, as well as the +1 to his charge roll. Now he's wounded on 2s against toughness 4 infantry units. Or maybe you're within range of a lot of enemy psychers with Smite, so you could give him the Black Templar tactics that shrug off the mortal wounds on a 5+, might help him a little bit there. It's not overpowered by any stretch, but I find it quite neat to have that in your pocket. Now you could give him Deep Strike for 1 CP if you wanted him up the board early for whatever reason. Can be quite tactical. So overall his price feels about right when comparing him to the Villain and Marines librarians. I mean, those guys are 90 points without their weapon upgrades. But that's the slight negative here, I guess, that those librarians have a selection of weapon options there. But they don't have that +1 to their casting abilities for the Witchfire and Smite ability. And you've also got the extra benefit of having a -4 AP weapon. Now, it does cost the same as a librarian in Phobos armor. Again, they don't have the +1 to cast, but they do get camo cloaks. So it's about right in fairness. So another noteworthy mention here is he takes his powers from the Xenos Purge Discipline and not from the Space Marine Codex, and that's according to the supplement itself within his datasheet. So this limits his options, and only one of those powers are actually a Witchfire power other than Smite, of course. So unless they're changing that in the FAQs to allow him to be able to use the Space Marine powers, I'm not sure, but at the moment I can't see that. So I've mainly been looking at this unit from this supplement only, but of course you can use the Space Marine stratagems to aid you in battle, as your Deathwatch faction should all be carrying the Adeptus Astartes keywords. So let me know in the comments if there's any useful stratagems from the main book that you like using. So personally I think if you're going to play with a basic librarian model like this one, he's a good option. The main reason for taking him is the psychic powers, of course. And this guy can do what a standard librarian can do, but he has +1 to his psychic test, as we've mentioned. So that part alone makes him a much more reliable psyker. I mean, yes, the marine librarians have access to a host of upgrades such as combi melters or jump packs, but you do have the option of taking that librarian too, if that's how you want to play. So it's just more options really. So looking at the Planet 40k rating for this unit, it's quite a standard unit if I'm honest, nothing crazy stands out. So for me it's middle of the road here with 3 out of 5 stars. It's nice having a unique Deathwatch model, but I don't see much difference from this and the standard librarian really. The SI8 bolt pistol isn't going to turn a game on its head, and the slightly better melee weapon also isn't game changing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you do field him, let me know what you do with him. What sort of powers and abilities do you use with him? Also, give me your own ratings below so we can see where we stand on this unit. Also, a little call to arms for the Deathwatch players that are watching. I'm going to be putting this video out on our Twitter page, so give it a retweet or something to try and get more Deathwatch players involved. As currently there's not that many of the Deathwatch players watching these videos, and these videos take about 4 hours to create. So when you see the views for them, it's quite gutting. So Help me out if you can by improving the Deathwatch viewership, which will definitely motivate me to be doing more of these if there's more of you watching. Anyway guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.